Lincoln certainly made a pretty big splash when they introduced the all-new Navigator last year. When I drove the vehicle myself in Portland, I was really impressed with just how much better it was versus its arch rival from Cadillac. Now, as you can see, I'm at the 2018 Los Angeles International Auto Show, and Lincoln's trying to basically capture some of that Navigator magic in a smaller package. This is the all-new 2020 Lincoln Aviator. Let's take a first look. So although the design of the new Aviator may look very familiar to the Navigator, it actually doesn't share a single thing with the Navigator. This is riding on an all-new global luxury rear-drive platform. This is the first Lincoln product to get this architecture. It actually will underpin the next generation Explorer, so it's a very scalable architecture for this vehicle. Now, let's talk a little about the design firsthand, because I really like the way this thing looks. It takes a lot of the design cues of the Navigator, but kind of tones it down just a tad. I like the new LED headlights here, which are standard. You have LED running lights. The turn signal, you have LED fog lights at the bottom here. This particular one that I'm showing you is actually the reserve trim. Each of the trims, Lincoln says, have its own unique grille finish. This one you can actually tell is a gas model because of the black color inside the Lincoln emblem. Now, speaking of which, under the hood of the Aviator, when it launches next summer, it will be offered with either a 3-liter twin turbocharged V6 with 400 horsepower, 400 foot-pounds of torque, or the more interesting option will actually be a plug-in hybrid. Lincoln says that model will have 450 horsepower and 600 foot-pounds of torque. So that's honestly probably the most torque that I've ever heard of in this particular segment. This vehicle, as it sits, is about 10 inches shorter than the current Lincoln Navigator. Now, at the side profile, let me first talk about the wheels. This reserve model has an optional 22-inch wheel wrapped in 275 tires. Most of the Aviator models will either have a 21-inch or a 22-inch wheel, which definitely fills out the wheel wells nicely. The rest of the profile here, it's a very clean, modern-looking SUV. And if it's about 10 inches shorter than the Navigator, you can expect this thing to be right around 200 inches long, which definitely makes it big. This competes with things like the Audi Q7, BMW's new X7, and Acura MDX, and so forth. So this is going to be a really popular vehicle when it does come to market. Now, a couple things you're also going to notice: the door handles for the Aviator. They're kind of like the Continentals, where they don't actually move. Instead, there's a little actuator behind the door handle that allows you to open the door. Now, speaking of which, the key fob for this vehicle, it's a Lincoln first. You actually don't even need a key fob. You can actually just program your cell phone to be the key, kind of like what Tesla does for the Model 3. Lincoln says you can program up to 4 phones, and you can also delete them in case you ever lose the phone or need to get rid of them. Now, following me over to the rear design of the Aviator, I also think it's a really attractive looking crossover. It has a lot of design cues maybe from Saab for me. I love the wraparound LED taillights. The Lincoln badge is kind of spelled out here across the tailgate. And then below here, you have well-integrated parking sensors and really nice looking quad outlet exhaust. So this is a really premium looking SUV, and the design certainly speaks to those buyers. So the inside of the all-new Aviator. Now, if you guys remember the review of the Navigator that I did, this interior is practically identical, right down to the 30-way perfect position seats, which are heated and cooled, and I believe they also massage you. These are basically the same seats that are lifted out of the Navigator. There's really way too many ways you can adjust them, but they are extremely comfortable. And unlike other Lincolns from the past, this interior will never make you think of a Ford product. It's basically uniquely its own design. Really nice materials. You can see there's genuine stitching on the dash, real leather here, it's stitched here, it's even soft touch plastic down here. The steering wheel, it's power telescoping, it's its own unique steering wheel. There's actually some unique buttons here and new switchgear. The switchgear in here honestly doesn't even remind me of Ford, so that's really great. All that soft, exquisite leather carries over to the door panels. You have these seat controls that are on the door panels over here. You have 3-person memory seats. The power window controls even feel a little bit more expensive than your typical Ford product. Unfortunately, you still have this push-button transmission selector, which I wasn't really a fan of in the Navigator. And then unlike the other Ford products, you do have a tablet-style display here, which is, I believe, a 10-inch display. It does have things like Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. You kind of expect that. Really well-labeled controls here. Pretty good amounts of storage with 2 cup holders. You have a drive mode selector here. I'll have to get into the actual test drive later on. The glove compartment, you guys always like to see that. It's a little bit on the smaller side, but it's damped. It's lined with felt. My tester here has a panoramic sunroof above you, which basically goes into the second row. But speaking of which, let's actually hop into that second row and see how the space is compared to the smaller or the larger Navigator. Now, the second row of the new Aviator, you can see here, this one has some captain's chairs, and getting back here, it's practically almost as spacious as the front seats. I really like how there's like a completely open area here, so you can get into the third row or access it. I'll show you guys that in just a moment. Now, the captain's chairs, they're pretty comfortable. You know, they have a recline function. You can kind of move them forward and back to give you a little bit more range. You have a little touchscreen here where you can show your rear seat climate controls, your rear seat vents. You have a power outlet here, and then a USB port, some more cup holders here. There are some things like a manual sunshade. There's a 28 speaker Revel sound system in here, which I'm assuming sounds fantastic if it sounds anything like the Navigator system. But with crossovers like this, let's see how the third row fares, especially since this is riding on an all-new rear drive architecture. So the ultimate test with these 3-row luxury crossovers is, can you actually fit adults in the third row? Now, Lincoln makes it pretty easy to access. There's a button here at the top of this captain's chair. Just push this button here. It uses hydraulics to kind of push the seat forward. Now, I am a little surprised. I wanted this space to be a little bit bigger to get back here, but the third row itself looks relatively spacious. So let me get back there to kind of entertain you guys. Now, the floor is lower than I expected that to be, which is good. This seat actually is all the way back, so I imagine if you push the seat slightly forward, it'll give you a little bit more space, but overall, it is a little bit tight back here. The Navigator definitely has more room. You do have rear seat vents. It's all hard touch plastic here, but overall, for somebody like me that's 5'7", if you just push the seat forward a little bit, I could be comfortable back here on somewhat longer commutes. So I wasn't able to show you the cargo area of the white one, but this particular one, the hybrid black label, is open up, so I can show you guys what the rear seat or the cargo area space looks like. Now, this is with the third row seat up. Now, Lincoln didn't actually have official numbers for us yet, but it's pretty comparable to the rest of the vehicles in the class, like the Audi Q7 or the Honda Pilot or Acura MDX. If you look underneath here, there's actually a nice little storage bin, which is great. I imagine a lot of you are going to be using that. Now, if you guys are interested in purchasing the all-new Aviator, you probably want to know that it will be on sale in the summer of 2018. Remember, this is a 2020 model, and Lincoln didn't have any actual official pricing just yet, but I have heard rumors that this will be between the $50,000 to $60,000 mark. I imagine this hybrid model will be considerably more. Remember, this competes with vehicles like the new Audi Q7, the BMW X7, Mercedes GLS, which is, again, this is a big vehicle, but I think that Lincoln has really nailed it in terms of the design. The features are great, and I think it'll be a really hot car when it finally does come to market. But I hope you guys have enjoyed my quick overview on this 2020 Lincoln Aviator. For Redline Reviews at the 2018 Los Angeles International Auto Show, I'm Sofyan Bey.